House Congressman Joe Neguse, Democrat of Colorado. He also serves as a House Assistant Democratic Leader. Congressman, it is notable. I think this is the only person I'm hearing break with the party on this, at least in the House. Some senators seem open to it. What do you make of Marjorie Taylor Greene's endorsement of extending the credits?
Well, it's good to be with you, Chris. I would hesitate to proffer, any guesses as to her motivations, but I think my sense is it's not rocket science. I suspect that she has seen what everyone else has seen, which is that her constituents are being completely left behind by President Trump. Costs are going up across the board. Everything is getting more expensive in Donald Trump's America, and that includes health care, which, of course, is exacerbated by the decisions that Republicans made earlier this year to cut Medicaid, to close rural hospitals, and now, of course, their failure to extend these ACA tax credits. So I suspect that she's seeing the same thing that so many of my colleagues are seeing. And I do think there are more members on the Republican side of the aisle who are both privately and publicly signaling deep disagreement with respect to the Speaker's strategy, which, by the way, Chris, just for the record, and I think it's important, perhaps can't be overstated, is just completely baseless. I'm here at the Capitol. As you know, the House is now on week 4 of a paid vacation. The Speaker refuses to open up the House. We're now in day 14 of a government shutdown. It is absurd that the Speaker has not brought Republicans back to Washington. My Democratic colleagues were all here, ready to get to work to negotiate and reopen the government. But I just don't think that this position that he has taken is sustainable or tenable. And obviously, that's evidenced by what you just heard from Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene.
It's funny, you call it a paid vacation. In my day, back when I worked on Capitol Hill, they called it recess. They have renamed recess. Have you noticed this? The Speaker's office calls it an in-district work session, which, credit where due. I think it's a pretty smart rebrand. But yes, they haven't been at the Capitol.
By the way, he's doing it unilaterally. This is, in part, in all seriousness, there was an article yesterday that talked about or reported that Steve Bannon had allegedly described the Congress as the Duma, right, akin to the Russian parliament, ceremonial in nature, capitulating to this president at every turn. The fact that the Speaker has just so debased the Article I branch of our government and literally will refuse to reopen the House, I think should offend every American of good faith. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, they're continuing to engage in these hijinks. I don't think that, as I said, it's a sustainable position for him to take.
Well, and they're also blocking a member of Congress. We have been on this because I do think there's actually a pretty important small d democratic principle here, and particularly in the times we live in, when you have Republican states attempting to mid-decade gerrymander Democrats out of seats, when you've all the overhang of January 6th, like Adalita Grijalva won that election. She is entitled to be in Congress. He is not allowing her today. Adalita Grijalva and other members of the Democratic Women's Caucus sort of marched on the Speaker's House to say, here she is, swear in right now, which he could do in a pro forma session. Their position is you don't get to go to Congress, even though the people of your district sent you here, until we come back from recess. And also, I control when we come back.
You're precisely right. You've articulated well, Chris, I think, the greater dangers that are embedded in the approach that the Speaker is taking. First and foremost, I'm grateful to Representative-elect Adalita Grijalva for continuing to really bring truth to power, speak truth to power about the need for her to be sworn in. The Arizona Attorney General, I understand, sent a letter to the Speaker demanding an answer in short order, and potentially, perhaps, there could be litigation that would follow. But it is a subversion of the constitutional order. And as you said, these are the same Republicans that obviously engaged in all kinds of nefarious behavior with respect to January 6th, the election administration, the counting of electoral votes, and all the rest. So it should concern folks that the Speaker is taking this approach, which ultimately, in my view, is depriving the people of Arizona of their duly elected representative. It's outrageous.
How do you see this ending? I guess no one knows right now. But again, there's a sort of game theory here. There's standoff. There's a sense of leverage. There's this very strange thing that the White House is doing, which is saying we're going to cut Democrat programs. We're going to cut, Democratic priorities. And that includes people that track infectious diseases, which I think is kind of good for everyone. Call me crazy. But, there's sort of this thing that they're going to go after. And none of it makes any logical sense because it's well, you said you could do that before. You did that during DOGE. You don't need a shutdown to do it. And also, if you think the programs are wasteful, why are you waiting for a shutdown? But clearly the idea is to kind of make it hurt for constituencies you represent until you cry uncle.
Yeah, I mean, these are the same folks, OMB and Russell Vogt and the rest, who have been dismantling the federal government piece by piece, service by service, program for program for the better part of the last 9 months. And now, as you said, illegally terminating employees at the CDC who are tracking infectious diseases, special education coordinators at the Department of Education, and refusing to negotiate with us to try to lower healthcare costs. At the end of the day, with respect to your core question, how does this all end? It's clear to me, the Republicans here in Washington, D.C. work for one person, and that is Donald Trump. So ultimately, it will end when President Trump decides to ultimately negotiate with Democrats so that we can reopen the government and extend these ACA credits. But until then, as I said, when Steve Bannon is calling the United States Congress the Duma, allegedly, you know that we're on dangerous ground. And I don't think that the Republicans are going to do anything but capitulate here, unfortunately, tragically.
Yeah. I don't think they're losing too much sleep over the fact that the longer it's out, the further until that discharge petition gets 218 votes, at which point it's locked, at which point they have to vote on the Epstein stuff, which they clearly don't want to do either. Congressman Joe Neguse, thank you for your time tonight.